The House Oversight Committee is conducting its own investigation into the fraud and may issue subpoenas to Governor Tim Walz and others to appear before the committee. Joining us now for tonight's Big Close-Up is House Oversight Committee Chairman, Congressman James Comer. Congressman, thank you for joining us tonight. We have a lot of questions for you, starting with this. Minnesota Democrats have agreed to appear before your February 10th hearing, or have they agreed to do so, or do you feel like you're going to have to subpoena them? And, looking at that shouting match you had, how confident are you at getting anyone to comply?
Well, if they don't agree to come, we're going to subpoena them. And both Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison both served in Congress. They know what a congressional subpoena is.
Yeah.
And I think they know that the whole Republican conference is serious about people showing up for fraud hearings. And if they don't, they're going to be held in contempt of Congress. And that's not going to end well for them with the Department of Justice on the ground currently, not just investigating, but prosecuting and arresting people on the ground as we speak for massive amounts of fraud within the Somali population.
Chairman Comer, I think all of us are probably pretty much of the mindset that Minnesota is the tip of a very, very large iceberg.
Yep.
Many other states lining up saying, hey, we probably have a little fraud here, too. Maybe take a little look at some of our leaders and what's going on. Ohio being one that's floated. I can't imagine what it looks like in New York and California. What's next? Are we going to get some oversight into some other states soon?
We're hoping more whistleblowers will come forward. That's why we've had success in Minnesota identifying this fraud. You had some brave state employees who just finally got fed up with years and years of warning Tim Walz and Keith Ellison about massive amounts of fraud within the social programs in Minnesota and them not doing anything in the governor's office or attorney general's office. Finally, some state employees came forward. We need that in other states, and I'm publicly asking for state employees in other states where there's massive amounts of fraud. I don't care if it's Republican fraud or Democrat fraud, Somali fraud or American fraud. It doesn't matter. We want to get serious about identifying waste, fraud, and abuse, eliminating it, and holding people accountable who are committing that fraud. And let me say something about Minnesota. 86% of the Somali population is on Medicaid in Minnesota. That's free health care. Everybody that's complaining about their free health care, about their excessive health care premiums, when so many people get it for free, somebody has to pay for that free health care. And one of the things that we fought over in the big, beautiful bill was trying to tighten the eligibility requirements up for Medicaid. Minnesota's social programs, from Medicaid to the SNAP benefits, everything is just unbelievably invaded with massive amounts of fraud, and we're finally going to do something about it because we've got the help of some state employees that have come forward. Hopefully that'll happen in other states.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you've now referenced those whistleblowers a number of times here, and I feel like what the whistleblowers are saying is what's so important, because it doesn't just show negligence and incompetence in Minnesota, it shows awareness and leaders actually going along and contributing to the problem or letting it slide, one of whom is Keith Ellison. I know he's been attacking Republicans. He's the attorney general, a Democrat in Minnesota. But he's also on tape, right, colluding with some of the people who've been indicted in this fraud.
Yeah, I said in the hearing we had this week that Keith Ellison could have more liability than Tim Walz because of that tape and other conversations and correspondence that we're gathering with the help of these state employees in Minnesota and the state lawmakers in Minnesota. What's just blown my mind away is the fact that these state employees have been ringing the bell for a decade about this fraud. And because the Somali population is such a massive voting bloc for the Democrat Party in Minnesota, they've turned a blind eye. And the liberal media in Minnesota has gone along with them because, you can't say anything about the Somali population. That would be racist in the liberal media's eyes. But again, it doesn't matter if it's Republican fraud or Democrat fraud. We've got to do something about fraud. And I doubt there are many states that per capita are going to have a higher percentage of their welfare budget that's going to be lost to fraud than Minnesota.
Mr. Chairman, it's Nicole Sapphire. You know, critics say that a lot of these investigations are political. Specifically with the Minnesota, I personally think that it's all about accountability and making sure taxpayer dollars are actually going to American citizens and people who deserve them. You know, what do you say to the American people? Why should they care about these investigations? And how can you make sure that it's not just another, you know, wasteful use of resources doing these investigations that just kind of turn into nothing? I mean, how can we be assured that you guys are going to get to the bottom of some of this and there's going to be some actual reform?
Yeah. Great questions. Why are we doing it? Because we can't continue to spend $3 trillion a year more than we take in Washington. And that's what the annual deficit is, $3 trillion. Our welfare budgets are growing much larger than the taxpayers can afford. So we've got to look at states where there's massive amounts of fraud in the welfare population, in the welfare programs, and try to eliminate that fraud. The big question that you ask that I get asked every day is, anything going to be done about it? I'm pretty confident that we're going to see success at the end of the day in Minnesota, because you've got so many of the cabinets in the Trump administration on the ground. Obviously, Department of Homeland Security is on the ground in Minnesota. Brooke Rollins, as you mentioned earlier, with the Department of Agriculture, she's on the ground because the SNAP programs are administered through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And Brooke Rollins asked Tim Walz months ago for data on his SNAP beneficiaries in Minnesota, and he refused to turn it over like every other Democrat, because they know that there's fraud there and they don't want to do anything about it. The recipients of their welfare programs in these blue states are huge Democrat voting blocs, and the Democrat governors and Democrat mayors have no incentive to do anything about it. But we've got the HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, on the ground. Every program in the federal government that would be what we would consider some type of welfare program, Minnesota is ground zero for fraud. And this Somali population in Minnesota appears to be professional almost at how they've been able to defraud these programs. And what we're learning is that there are pockets of Somali organization in other states where they've committed this types of fraud. Maybe not on the same level as Minnesota, only because there's not that many living in those states. But we're going to track the money. We're going to follow the money to wherever it leads. If it's a Republican state, it doesn't matter. We're serious about reducing and eliminating fraud and holding people accountable.
Real quick, Chairman, it took Nick Shirley posting a video that got 100 million people to see it for this to become something that we talk about every night and half the cabinet to go on the ground on. But this is a scandal that was hiding in plain sight. We're talking about 90 people, more than 90 people that were charged, some that were convicted. There's no way these things weren't known. You're the chairman of the Oversight Committee. What other things are you looking at that we're not talking about yet that really need to be household issues? And does it take a Nick Shirley to do something like that before the administration, Congress, and everyone else reacts to it?
Well, unfortunately, I think we're going to need more Nick Shirleys. We're going to need more citizen journalists that are going to go out and utilize this social media that is just taking over journalism, because there are too many of the traditional journalists that have just fallen in line with the left-wing propaganda machine and don't want to go after any type of wrongdoing unless it has Trump affiliated with it. So we're going to go after any type of government program that we think taxpayer dollars are being used. That would be in the form of grants. That would be in the form of tax credits. That would be in the form of people on Medicaid and people that are abusing Medicaid and Medicare. These are healthcare providers. We've gone after the big pharmaceutical companies and the pharmacy benefit managers that we believe have spiked the cost of prescription drugs. So anything that's adversely affecting the working men and women of America, that's what we're going to go after, and hopefully we can get some help from the Department of Justice and prosecute some of these people, because if there aren't prosecutions, if people don't go to jail, this fraud will continue. And I think Pam Bondi's gotten the message. I know the president is serious about it, and hopefully we'll see some accountability very soon.
Chairman, I really appreciate you joining us tonight. As always, very insightful, and good luck in the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.